G'day guys, and welcome back to episode of our Kart Class Podcast. Today we're going to be looking at our race weekend structure and how some of the other teams are going about their race weekends and what you may be able to do differently. Now when it comes to a race weekend, if we're typically looking at just say a series or Golden Power series or some of the statewide series, drivers are typically not allowed to go there for the week of the race event. So whether they've tested there previously or most tracks close the week off. So for a lot of families, we're seeing especially the younger kids, we're trying to get to the track once before a major race. Now the reason for that is you get to a race weekend and you only get about 2 practice sessions and then you roll straight into qualifying. Those 2 practice sessions are between say 6 and 8 minutes. Depending on track length, that's going to be around, let's say, 15 to 18 laps total for drivers that are aged between 7 and say 12 for the cadet categories to get up to speed with drivers that have been there, potentially they've raced there before, they've practiced and they've tested before, and it's just way too hard. And now what we're seeing is, for the Golden Power series, is that the second practice session is a time session. Now what that's doing is it's actually setting you up for your qualifying grid. So if you're rocking up to this race and you've got no experience of the circuit, the Puckapunyal circuit for round 1, which was held last week, you're going to go there in session 1 and you're going to learn the track. Session 2, you need to be on the money because if you if you set a time that's basically in the middle of the pack and we're getting classes of 40 drivers, you're rolling out for qualifying in about 20th position. Now, sometimes that can work in your favor because you've got obviously karts to chase or to slipstream, but you're driving with drivers that have timed, between say 15 and 25th. So you actually never get to see what the fastest kids are doing on the track, or you're not getting a slipstream, you're not chasing the fastest kids. So what happens is then we qualify, even if we've improved, we qualify a little bit, we might be in that 15th range, and we're basically playing catch up the whole weekend. And now the problem is we've only got 4 sessions, including the final, to basically deliver a good result. And it's just way too hard for young kids to be on the outright speed of some of these kids who are racing at the Australian Championship level, and we're just rocking up and racing and hoping for the best. So what we're trying to do now is we're trying to get one day in at the circuit before the race event. We're trying to knock out 70 to 80 laps. It doesn't matter about lap times. It doesn't matter about track conditions. It's just the visualization and basically making the mistakes before we get to the race weekend. Because as I was saying, the race weekend might only, total 65 to 80 laps for a race weekend. We can achieve that in one day. Within about 3 or 4 hours, we can knock out those 80 laps of a race weekend. And so when we do arrive to the race meeting, we're going to be a lot closer. Now, a lot of other families that are on a strict budget, which makes sense because karting and motorsport, is expensive. They're going to practice those 2 sessions on, use set of rubber, which is totally fine. But the kids that seem to be towards the front, that have got more experience and that are actually going there trying to win, they're going to go out and practice on a new set of tyres, or at least some that have done, let's say 10 to 15 laps, are going to keep a set aside. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to mock a qualifying session before qualifying. That gives them good intel on how the kart's behaving, how the driver's getting their tyres at the temperature so they can actually get a peak lap in. And obviously if they've got better rubber on, most likely going to actually set a more competitive time. That actually helps them move further up the grid when it comes to qualifying. And then when they go on the track with other drivers for qualifying, even if they're not the fastest because other kids have actually had used tyres on, they're with the main group now. So now they're going to qualify within the top, say 5 or 10 spots. So now we're on a level playing field for qualifying. We've got the same grip as everyone else. We might not be as fast as them, but even if 1 or 2 pass us, we're still getting dragged along by some really quick kids and some really quick karts. We know that qualifying is probably the most important session of a race weekend as well. So once you qualify in that top 10, you have a little bit better track position. You can try and avoid, more of the accidents. You tend to be with more of the experienced drivers. So yeah, instants are down and you can bank a solid weekend of results. So that's one thing that I've seen a lot recently is families basically practicing on a good set of rubber to set that peak lap so it gets some track position for qualifying. And it happens at national level as well. We have a tyre limit where you can only have 2 sets of tyres scanned for the practice days. That does help. I think that should be, I don't know how we can impose it specifically to those statewide series where potentially, you have to scan in your practice set of tyres and then we can only have a certain allocation across the rounds. Obviously, it's not going to help when people race 1 or 2 rounds across the year. But I do think there's something in that to try and limit the costs and to have a tyre bank that, supercars and other motorsport industries have it where they have to use a set from the previous round or something like that, where we might have that the practice set of tyres for the following round is actually your race set of tyres from the previous round if you've raced it. I think that's a good way to try and limit costs as well. But there's some of the things that the top drivers and the top families and the top teams are setting out to do. Practice before you get there. Then when you get to the race event, practice on a good set of tyres, get your qualifying set up, dialed in, get your track position set up for qualifying and drive with faster kids. When it comes to, races and finishing races, it's good to do a little bit of a debrief after your session. Obviously, some of the kids are better at this than others, where they might be writing just 1 or 2 notes down where the kart was sliding, it wouldn't come out of the corners, it was bad on the straight, it was too fast on the straight, whatever it is. But I think when you're starting to develop this initiative early on, if these kids' desire is to get into race cars, they're going to be doing these debriefs later on. So it doesn't come as a bit of a chore down the track. It's like, no, we're used to it and we're doing it at a basic level. Doesn't have to be anything too, too counterproductive, but just basically thinking about 1 or 2 dot points that they can try and improve on before the next race. So have a think about how you'd go that. Like I have a couple of track maps that we tend to just write on. It might be a certain corner that you can overtake on, don't overtake on this one, or, a wet line that they can just draw on to sort of visualize it before they go out to a session. But a lot of people are just sort of driving and then just hoping they're going to improve next session. And, with data these days, with onboard videos that we've, all cars have to use, if we can tend to use these tools a little bit better than what we currently are, we're going to see development happening a lot faster. And with that development, we're going to start moving up the grid a lot quicker. So that's sort of a couple of things that you can work on for a race weekend is, the testing beforehand, some debrief notes, just 1 or 2 things after a session, write down, and obviously just trying to improve those couple of things per session. And, you might find if you're doing 1 or 2 of these things a bit better, you can improve 3 or 4 things across a race weekend. It might be just overtaking on a certain corner, the race starts, the speed that you're driving on a certain corner, or defending from a particular driver as well, where they know they're going to be attacking you. So really important for young kids just to write notes down, get in a little booklet, keep it simple, just trying to improve those little 1%ers every time you go on track. So hope you've enjoyed this episode in our Kart Class podcast. We're trying to give you guys little tips and information that we use in our race team to try and better develop other race kids out there. And so it pushes the whole karting community along. Until next time, guys, I appreciate you tuning in and we'll speak to you guys soon. Cheers.